Ella, a young girl from Australia, had come to the small village of Midnight Hollow to celebrate Eid with her friends and family. The village had an eerie calm, and the people were celebrating the festival with prayers and joy. For Ella, it was supposed to be the happiest day, surrounded by loved ones, but little did she know that this Eid would change her life forever. Her friends, Jack and Mia, had told her about an old mansion on the outskirts of the village, a place that had been abandoned for years. They whispered that the mansion was haunted, and anyone who ventured inside never returned. At first, Ella dismissed it as a childish tale, but as the evening grew darker, her curiosity grew stronger. She decided to visit the mansion with her friends, despite the warnings. As night fell, they made their way to the mansion. The air grew cold, and the atmosphere around the mansion felt strangely eerie. The old building seemed to be alive, creaking under the weight of years gone by. The friends felt a chill down their spines as they entered the mansion, their hearts pounding in their chests. Inside, the place was a maze of decaying walls and forgotten memories. Strange portraits of long-dead ancestors lined the walls, their eyes following every movement. Ella felt an unease creeping up her spine, but she pushed it aside, determined to explore. That was until she noticed one portrait, in particular. A woman's eyes seemed to glare directly at her, and a cold shiver ran down her back. She felt as though the woman was alive, watching her. Her friends, however, laughed it off, making jokes and poking fun at Ella's growing fear. But as they ventured deeper into the mansion, a chilling sound echoed through the halls, a distant whisper, a voice from the past, beckoning them deeper into the darkness. The air grew heavier, suffocating even, and Ella's anxiety escalated. She urged her friends to leave, but they didn't listen. Then, the temperature dropped dramatically, and they suddenly saw figures moving in the corners of their eyes, shadows, with twisted faces that seemed to fade into the walls the moment they looked directly at them. Before they could make sense of what was happening, the ground beneath their feet began to shake, and the once silent mansion filled with disturbing sounds, screams, whispers, and the clanking of chains. The group panicked and began to run, but the mansion seemed to warp around them, its corridors stretching impossibly long, trapping them inside. As Ella ran, she turned to look behind her, only to see the woman from the portrait standing in the doorway, her eyes glowing with an unnatural light. The woman opened her mouth, letting out a chilling scream that echoed through the mansion, sending a wave of terror through Ella's body. With her heart racing, Ella made a desperate sprint for the exit, Jack and Mia just a few steps behind. But as they neared the door, the air became thick, and the ground beneath them seemed to collapse. Ella felt a cold, icy hand grab her arm, pulling her into the darkness. Her friend screamed, but Ella's fate was sealed as the mansion claimed yet another soul. The mansion's cold, dark grip had taken Ella. As her friends, Jack and Mia, struggled to comprehend what had just happened, they realized they were no longer in control of their fate. The mansion had swallowed them whole, and the air around them seemed to whisper in eerie tones, beckoning them deeper into its heart. It had been hours since they had seen Ella disappear into the shadows, but they were still trapped in the labyrinth of the mansion. The walls seemed to pulse with life, shifting and changing with every step they took. Jack and Mia held each other close, but the fear was too much to bear. Their minds were unraveling, and they knew they had to find a way out before the mansion claimed them as well. Suddenly, a cold gust of wind howled through the corridor, and a door that had previously been closed opened on its own. The room beyond it was dark, and the air felt thick, as if it were suffocating them. But Jack, desperate to find Ella and get out of this nightmare, stepped forward, dragging Mia along behind him. As they entered the room, the temperature plummeted. A single candle flickered in the center, casting long, twisting shadows on the walls. The walls were covered in strange, cryptic symbols, and an eerie feeling of dread washed over them. "Is this where she went?" Mia whispered, her voice trembling. Jack nodded, but he didn't feel certain. The room felt wrong. The walls seemed to close in around them, and every corner they turned revealed nothing but more darkness. They were running out of options, out of time. And then they heard it, the sound of Ella's voice. "Ella!" Mia cried, running toward the sound. But as she rounded the corner, she froze. There, standing in the middle of the room, was Ella. Her face was pale, her eyes hollow, and her body was covered in strange symbols that seemed to glow faintly in the candlelight. She was standing still, staring blankly ahead, as if in a trance. "Ella, what's happening to you?" Jack shouted, rushing to her side. But Ella didn't respond. She just stood there, her eyes fixed on something far beyond them. A shadow emerged from the corner, a dark figure that seemed to materialize out of thin air. The figure was tall, cloaked in tattered robes, and its face was obscured by a hood. It slowly approached Ella, its hands outstretched. Jack and Mia watched in horror as the figure placed its hand on Ella's forehead. Suddenly, her eyes snapped open, glowing with an unnatural light. A guttural voice emanated from her mouth, one that wasn't hers. "You should not have come here," the voice hissed. "The mansion belongs to the spirits of the lost. And now you too are ours." Mia screamed as she tried to pull Ella away, but the dark figure's power was overwhelming. Jack grabbed her hand, trying to pull her back, but the shadows seemed to pull them closer. The room began to twist, as if it were alive, and the air grew thick with the scent of decay. Suddenly, the ground beneath them cracked open, and they fell into the darkness below. Ella, Jack, and Mia plummeted into an abyss, their bodies colliding with cold stone. When they hit the ground, the world around them spun. They were no longer in the mansion, but in a vast underground chamber, its walls lined with faded portraits of forgotten souls. They stood up shakily, only to hear whispers in the dark, voices too faint to understand. Mia reached for Jack's hand, but his grip was tight, cold. Suddenly, the whispers grew louder, turning into a harsh, guttural chant. Shadows moved unnaturally, twisting and shaping into human-like forms. "Run!" Ella screamed, her voice tinged with terror, but it wasn't her voice. It was deeper, hollow, and filled with malice. Before they could react, the floor beneath them cracked open again, revealing a vast pit of swirling darkness. The air felt alive, suffocating them. The shadows seemed to come alive, their glowing eyes fixated on the trio. They tried to run, but the ground shifted beneath them, trapping them in a horrifying maze. The mansion's curse had sealed their fate. But there, standing at the maze's center, was the cloaked figure from before, its hands raised, summoning an unearthly force. Jack and Mia tried to escape, but the shadows were closing in. "We're never leaving," Mia whispered, her voice trembling as the figure's eyes locked onto theirs.